Buenas tardes, señoras y señores. Creo que ustedes saben que no soy español. Soy, en facto, un flamenco belgo de Bruselas y no hablo español. Pero tengo una solución, and if you would allow, I will continue in English. First, a few words about, I will dwell on the following points. First of all, I will very briefly introduce you to EFCA and what it stands for. Then a few words about a survey that was recently made on what firms actually think, where they stand, and where they put the emphasis. Then the future demands and skills that are required for the business. Then we'll talk about the winners of tomorrow and what it takes. And finally, I will say a few words about mobility of labor and the introduction of the engineering card at European level. So, first of all, EFCA is the sole association representing engineering consultancy and related services in Europe. We, although our members are 24 professional associations, at the end of the day, we are working for the firms. And what we do for the firms is trying to create a level playing field across Europe on for business conditions, so that you can work in fair business conditions. EFCA also represents FIDIC in Europe. So within FIDIC, but I presume that Pablo will say a few words about this, is setting up regional groupings in order to have a smooth organizational structure. EFCA as a federation aspires to positively influence EU legislation that impacts on the engineering consultancy. We promote, of course, fair competition and transparent procedures, and you will be happy to learn that within the European market, the new public procurement legislation has a lot of potential and innovation in it, and it will bring real improvements to the market. For example, for intellectual services such as engineering services, they will no longer be procured through lowest cost. It doesn't exist anymore. There will be always a negotiated procedure. So I think that is very good news for our industry. We are also a network and a business platform for the member associations and the firms. It's important also that there is a mechanism by which firms can get in touch with each other, team up, and tender for projects both nationally and at the international level. And EFCA definitely also requires its members to comply with its code of conduct, which governs the performance and the quality of the service offered by the member firms. Now, a recent study tried out to find out what business owners, firms owners, CEOs think what would be the most important criterion for a company. And the survey revealed that it's all about people. They think it takes, first of all, the right talent. So you need to attract the right people to the company. You need to develop and maintain your client relationships. That was ranked second. And thirdly, to build and maintain the best reputation. Now, these criteria are definitely true for SMEs, because SMEs, most of the time, those qualities and qualifications are in one person, namely the CEO of the company. Now, the big challenge there is, once the CEO is about to retire and to give the reins to new people that will follow him up, that they also have those qualities. So he needs to establish a bench of people who are potentially able to take over the job. Within EFCA, and you can see a picture of the publication over there, we made a little study following the beginning of the crisis. And we said, well, we need to look forward. How can we combat the crisis? Well, what do companies need to do? What questions do I need to ask? What solutions do I need to consider? So, and also, what are the future demands and skills of your staff? So, the questions that a company should ask is, do we develop the necessary skills as professionals, as service providers, as entrepreneurs, as employers? Is the organization of our firm ready to catch the new business opportunities? Question mark. Do we invest enough in our employees and their knowledge and skills? Do we develop and implement new business strategies fast enough? Because that's also an issue. Do you pick them up quickly enough? Now, we identified 6 points there. And let's start with the management skills for internal processes. What do we mean? Are we market-driven enough? How do we handle the generation gap? What do we do with gender issues, for example, in a company? How do we use part-time employment and self-employed staff? What are our productivity targets? What about our client satisfaction focus? Do we allow homework? And so on and so forth. So it's a whole array of questions that comes up. But there are also behavioral demands, and it was raised a few times already today. I heard several times the word empathy, for example. Well, empathy is definitely needed, because if you don't understand your client, what are you saying? How are you communicating? So you need to put yourself in the shoes of your client in order to understand what your client is requesting from you. That is one aspect. But there is also much to be said about trust and about corporate responsibility and individual corporate responsibility. There is a short-term client relationship. There's the firm's responsibility in fast-changing teams, for example. Another element, and that's bullet number 4, is teamwork. Francisco has mentioned it again, and the word fell several times today. Teamwork becomes increasingly important because it deals with management, planning, integration, networking, but also soft skills, language skills, which are increasingly important. And as Francisco was just saying, apart from your mother tongue, there is one language today, whether we like it or not, on the international scene, in the business, and it's English. Full stop. So, in our view, that's a necessity to acquire that skill. But language in itself doesn't speak about communication. Communication is something different. Communication is the possibility and the ability to express yourself in a clear way to your audience, whoever or whatever that may be. It also deals with the introduction of new technologies, negotiation skills, but also presentation skills. People who make a presentation and speak to themselves, well, they lose out. It's also about persuasiveness, about salesmanship, multitasking, and so on. And then finally, on the business skills, well, there again, we have a whole array of new abilities that we need to master. These rank from risk management, marketing skills, knowing a little bit about legal and financial engineering, leadership and business skills, commercial insight, and so on and so forth. So you see, it's more questions than answers, but it's all questions that each and every company should put in due time. Winners of tomorrow. And that is also, that also came out of a survey. Well, it will be no surprise that firms that are most agile and can adapt most quickly to market developments and changes in the way clients want to communicate and collaborate will be the winners of tomorrow. So flexibility also within the own organization at various levels, be it management, be it staff, and so on and so forth, definitely come into the picture. The employer and employee investment in continuing vocational education and training. Why is that important? I was mentioning it this morning. There are many mismatches between, on the one hand, education, and on the other hand, what the demands are of the market. Now, in order to make those matches, there is where we speak about vocational education and training. They can, fix that gap between those two. There is also reskilling and multi-skilling. So you don't need to be a simple engineer. It's not because you can draw a house, for example, that you are a professional. No, you need more. You need to be able to convince your client that you have the best design, that the place or the volume that you created is the best place to live in with the best conditions, and so on and so forth, at an affordable price on top. So there are many issues that come into light when talking about reskilling and multi-skilling. And then finally there is the access to labor. It's a headache in Europe. It's a headache because we are lacking good engineers. The influx is not sufficient to cover the outflux. And another study, which was conducted in Germany at European level, showed that by 2007-2010, there will be one-tenth of the workforce of the engineers will retire. But the influx is not half that big, so we'll have a problem. And that may even impact on the quality that we will deliver eventually in our services industry, and that should not happen. Last point, mobility of labor. And here I have a scoop. You see here the engineering card. This has been introduced in a number of European countries, and this helps to improve mobility. You may know or not know, but across Europe we have more than 10,000 different curriculums for engineer. More than 10,000. So if you try to create a level playing field among all those different curricula, I mean, that's a mission impossible. So better don't try it. What our peers from FEANI did, and we assisted them in this exercise, is they created an engineering card, and that is a spin-off from a European piece of legislation, which, by the way, has been adopted yesterday by the European Council, by the European Parliament, and the Commission. So they agreed on the topic, and the engineering card is embedded in the new legislation. So what does this card do? Because you can say, well, as an employer, well, what's the added value? Well, the added value is that it helps to get their engineers recognized for both national and international projects. It facilitates the employers in their human resources process because of the validation process. If a Belgian engineer knocks at your door, you're an employer, and he says, well, sir, I'm an engineer, I've seen your vacancy, I would like to apply for your vacancy. Will you know what qualifications that guy has? No, you don't. Now, this card will help you understand what qualifications a specific engineer has. These cards are and will be issued in the countries where they don't exist yet, will be issued at national level at a low cost. So the engineer who is interested in obtaining such a card will pay, I don't know, 100 euros or something on an annual basis. There will be basic information on the card. So the card will, of course, carry his name, specify whether he's a master, a bachelor, a master, or a PhD. It will also give an indication on his professional experience, whether he's employed in the private or the public sector, whether he's employed by a public company, whether he's self-employed, and then in the third column, you will see it specifies further education, such as training seminars that a person attended with a certificate, without a certificate, and so on and so forth. Now, this is very basic information still. What's the added value for you as an employer is that this card will be linked to a database, which is managed at national level, because at national level they know what the various diplomas are. So as an employer, you will be able to consult that database. So it will be a European database where you can see what kind of qualifications a certain person has, and the information will be made available both in the national language and in English. So I think I stick to my 12 minutes, and I will stop with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.